The following interview you're about to see has been pre-recorded, slightly edited, and trimmed. If anybody watching this video when it's premiering live, like our usual video blogs, we, along with our guest, won't be able to answer your questions in the live chat, but we can assure you that the video you're about to watch will be very exciting, filled with fun behind-the-scenes stories, a few jokes, and guaranteed to take you into the exciting world of animation. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Hey there, folks, and welcome to our very special episode of the Cartoon Show.
Hello.
All throughout the month, we've been celebrating the underrated Cartoon Network series Victor and Valentino in honor of Cinco de Mayo. And as a grand finale, we decided to talk to someone who knows more about the series than the both of us, because he created it.
Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, joining us all the way from Austin, Texas, is the series creator and the voice of Victor himself, Diego
Molano.
Hey guys, how's it going? Thank you for having me.
It's going great.
Unfortunately, Diego doesn't want us to show his face because he told us when we reached out to him that he got into an accident, so he prefers to do this audio only.
But
if you guys don't mind.
Just to clarify, guys, he's okay and everything, so don't worry, he's fine. But we have a lot of questions, and hopefully we can provide some answers and all that stuff in this special interview.
Mm-hmm. Now, Diego, we did ask this to Spencer when we talked to him, and this is basically something we like to do with any of the guests that we get on the show.
Yeah.
So before you started working at Cartoon Network as a background painter, a storyboard artist, and an art director on such shows as the criticized Powerpuff Girls reboot from 2016, OKKO Let's Be Heroes, and Black Dynamite for Adult Swim, what inspired you to become an artist? Like, what was your artist or animator spark?
Yeah, what was that?
I don't remember a time where I wasn't drawing. So my earliest memory of like when I was like 1 years old, I was just drawing. And my grandmother kept all of those scribbles, which some of them are pretty intense if you look at them now. So I think it was just a natural thing. And as I was growing up, it felt like a part of me, like this was what I was doing and what I was gonna do, and doing anything else seemed absurd.
Dang.
And so when I was old enough to understand what a cartoon was, and that what's so funny is that when I was like maybe 4 or 5 years old, I thought the Ninja Turtles were real, and that I one day was gonna meet them. And so I would draw them a lot, and hoping like at some point I knew I was going to meet them. I was going to show them all my drawings and tell them how much of a fan I was. And then obviously when I got older, I realized that cartoons are a business, and I was really disappointed when I learned what cartoons were.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, the spark came very, very early on, and I just don't remember a time where I didn't think about art.
Yeah, and I think in a Comic-Con video that you were in, on Cartoon Network's YouTube channel, you said that one of your inspirations was Jim Henson, right?
Yeah.
I just grew up on a steady diet of Jim Henson and cartoons and comics. And all through school, I created comics, my own comics. I can't help but do this stuff, so it just comes naturally to me.
Yeah, definitely Jim Henson.
Jim Henson's the bomb. He's the greatest,
oh, yeah.
the greatest influence on many animators these days.
Yeah, and he did that first Ninja Turtles movie, which was incredible.
Oh yeah.
And what's funny about the Jim Henson studio is when I went to LA the first week that I was there, I was staying at a buddy's house. I didn't have an apartment yet. And I would just roam Hollywood on a bus, and I would just do plein air drawing and painting. And for about a week straight, I stood outside the Jim Henson studio and drew it with Kermit the Frog on top and that kind of Swiss architecture.
Yo.
Nice.
Dreaming that I would be working in the creature shop there one day. I never got to work there. I ended up working at Titmouse, but it's just Jim Henson's just a warm, such a presence and such a great inspiration
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of inspiration, that actually leads to another question, and that is, what inspired you to create the Victor and Valentino series? Like, did you have any, were any thoughts about it in your head before it started to come into play? And that's part one of it. The second part is, how long were you pitching it to Cartoon Network before they finally decided to greenlight it?
Yeah. So the answer to the first question was, when I was in college, I was really heavily influenced by Robert Rodriguez, the director from Mexico.
Oh, yeah!
Yeah, so, I loved El Mariachi and Once Upon a Time in Mexico and Desperado and even some of his more obscure stuff. And while I was in college, instead of turning in assignments, in a kind of generic way, I created these characters in order to turn in the assignments. So, say, for instance, there was an assignment about perspective where you had to draw buildings and people. I would put Victor, Valentino, and Vicente, the third character that never made it into the show, into Mexican architecture. And that's what the perspective assignment I would turn in. Or, for instance, there was a color assignment. I would use my characters to turn in the assignment.
Okay.
So that's how, that's how the characters kind of developed themselves. They just kind of kept on growing out of turning work into my college professors.
Nice.
And then the second question was, how long did I pitch it to Cartoon Network? Well, when I was at Titmouse, I pitched it when Nickelodeon came and was taking pitches at Titmouse. And so what I did was I took my characters that I would turn in, that I was turning in work with during college, and I just kind of made it into I made a story engine or a show engine around them, and I pitched it to Nickelodeon, and they really liked it, and they wanted to make a series of it. And so I got the contract, but then Cartoon Network right afterwards, before I didn't know that Nickelodeon wanted it, and Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network both wanted it. And what I heard around the industry was that Cartoon Network was more of an artist-driven place versus Nickelodeon. Not by much, but I will say that Cartoon Network was created by Brian Miller and Gendy Tartarovsky after I talked with them, and they said that they wanted to create a place for artists by artists. Where
wow.
It's an auteur kind of network where artists are free to kind of create what they want. And so because of that, I chose Cartoon Network. And so it took maybe about a year of pitching and waiting and repitching. But once Cartoon Network bought the idea, that's not the end of the story. You have to kind of prove to them that the idea is worthy. So after they buy your idea, you have to kind of make a pilot. And then after you make a pilot, you have to go into this incubation period for like 8 months and kind of draw episode after episode, or write episode after episode. And then at one point, they say yes or no. And thankfully, they said yes.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And speaking of episodes, did you have any favorite episodes and or scenes to write or storyboard with your colleagues on the V&V crew?
Yeah. Gosh, there's so many.
There really is.
Yeah, let me see. Well, there was one particular episode that I really loved how the pitch came out. A friend of mine that I was a fan of, he's an artist. His name is Zach Bellissimo. He created a short on YouTube called Long Gone Gulch, which you haven't seen it. Check it out. It's beautiful and it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's an independent short that he pitched, and regrettably no one picked it up, but it's such a perfect premise, and he's an incredible artist. But anyway, he pitched an episode called Charlene Mania, which brought the house down. Like at Cartoon Network, when a storyboard artist finishes storyboarding an episode, they have to pitch it with the voices and go through the board and, kind of show it off to everyone, just to kind of take the temperature if it's a good board or not. And I've never seen a storyboard kill as much as Zach's Charlene Mania pitch. It just brought the house down, and it made such an impact, and it kind of showed me the power of a storyboard much more so than I thought before.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, he's an incredible artist. If you haven't seen his stuff.
Wow. That is incredible. And speaking of things that are like done in the series, were there like any, like, since you just mentioned Vicente being the third person, were there any other scrapped characters or like Mesoamerican legends or like any episode ideas that didn't quite make the cut when you were making this?
Yeah, actually, let me think. So
okay.
Yeah, so there was this one episode. So yeah, so I'll start with Vicente. Yeah, so okay. Vicente, when I was turning in work in college, my final thesis was I created just a kind of very basic Unreal Engine version of Victor, Valentino, and Vicente, and it was kind of like either Legend of Zelda: Four Swords or Triforce Heroes or The Lost Vikings.
Way!
Yeah, where it's like three characters working in tandem to kind of solve puzzles. And, Vicente was the super fast one, speedy guy. And then Victor was the one who hit you with a yo-yo. And then Val was the one with the sombrero who can glide and you can climb on him. And so
you were like developing Victor and Valentino as a video game before making it into a television show?
It was just an experiment. It was my thesis for college, and the idea wasn't to make it to a video game. The idea was to kind of prove that this can be a intellectual property that has many facets. And in fact, I was, obsessed with Robert Rodriguez for a while and his Troublemaker Studio that I packaged the CD-ROM of the game and along with a pitch. That was back like in 2006. And I sent off that package to Troublemaker Studios. I never heard back from him, but
wow.
I would have loved to have worked with him or possibly made some animation with him or something live action. But yeah, so Vicente was part of it. He was like the smallest. He was supposed to have a mustache, and he was supposed to be 6 years old. So Victor was 9. Val was 11 and Vicente was 6, but he was supposed to be the leader.
Oh.
A 6-year-old going into puberty. That would be pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
I can understand now why the character was not in this final show.
Actually, yeah. Fair.
Well, it wasn't because of that. It was more so, it was just easier to write a duo for me. But as far as like things that never made it to the show, there's an episode, Lonely Haunts Club 5, which was, there's supposed to be an extra episode called The House of Tubes. And I really loved it because it showed a character on a wheelchair. It was a ghost. It was a little girl ghost. And it was about a house of tubes. It was like in Mexico, there's this legend about this dad who built this very tall house made of tubes. Well, not exactly made of tubes. The rooms were regular, but the hallways that connected everything were made of tubes so that his little girl can more easily, on a wheelchair, get from place to place. And one day she went too fast during its construction down one of the tubes, and she fell to her death, unfortunately. But the house is still there in Mexico, and it's said to be haunted by a little girl in a wheelchair.
Whoa.
And so
you were going to have Victor and Valentino and Charlene and Pineapple explore this haunted house?
That's right. They were going to explore the House of Tubes, and we were going to get to meet the ghost in the wheelchair, and Victor would become best friends with her, or really good friends with her, because she knows how to do wheelchair tricks on the half pipe, or in the tube, in the inner tube, or the half tube. And so, Victor's a skateboard guy, and so it was going to be really sweet and really great, but unfortunately, CN said that you can't really portray a a wheelchair as being scary because it kind of perpetuates stereotypes as people in wheelchairs being scary.
Okay.
I mean, the episode could have been reworked, but I can understand why they didn't want to do it.
Fair.
Yeah, I mean, it was never meant to insult. It was only meant to kind of, be cute. But they didn't see it that way.
All right.
But yeah, that's an episode that I wished we had gotten to do.
Well, darn.
We got another question for you, and Jared, you're welcome to ask it if you like.
Oh, okay. Well, it's just that we were going to do something. We were analyzing this.
Oh, sorry. One more thing that I was going to say that I think you guys would think is funny about what I regret that isn't in the show is when I first pitched the show, I always wanted Victor to have snot coming out of his nose at all times. And so part of his personality would be sniffling. So he'd be like, yeah, so I don't want to go in there with that.
I think I'm going to be sick. I can definitely see why that had to not be included in the production.
I was not ready for that. I'm sorry. It's just that, just as a whole side note, I'm so sorry, but Aloysius is one of my favorite episodes. I'm sorry. But
I'm glad you like it. I love that episode too. That episode was bordered by Zach Bellissimo that I was talking about. But the snot, I always wanted it to kind of drip back. He would snort it in, and it would always drip back out. And I always wanted Val to kind of have crumbs and chocolate stains all over his mouth, kind of like Augustus Gloop from Willy Wonka.
No way!
At the end, kind of thought it was a bit too gross, so they took it out. But it would have been funny if at least Victor got to be sniffly.
That's great. But unfortunately, this actually leads to something very unfortunate because of modern things going on right now, and that because of what happened in the final episode, quote unquote, Fall of the Fifth Son, we saw that it ended on such an unsatisfying, unresolvable cliffhanger, and it really actually stings me to just think about, because I hated the way that your show was being treated by being removed from digital, from HBO Max, and all that stuff. So
yeah.
So because of this, we wanted to know, do you have any ideas about how to give the show a proper conclusion, like with graphic novels, a comic book, maybe a feature film or something like that? Do you have any ideas about that?
I actually tried very, very hard. And unfortunately, I was told no at every turn. Every version of what could have existed for seasons 4, 5, and 6, which, by the way, before Warner Brothers took over, that was in the works. So when Brian Miller approached me about figuring out what season 2 and 3 were going to be about, he also asked what season 4, 5, and 6 were going to be about. And so I just kind of assumed that we were just going to keep going. And then when Warner Brothers took over, they unfortunately canceled everyone's shows. Everyone's show was getting canceled. And it was a very weird time, and it definitely was a takeover. And, it felt like to all of us, like Warner Brothers didn't really care to keep the culture that we had cultivated at Cartoon Network.
Oh.
Like I said, Brian and Gendy, they built this network for artists by artists, and we had a completely different mentality, but Warner Brothers was more business and kind of corporate, and I get it. They got to do what they got to do to stay afloat. They're in the hole a lot of money, so they have to make their money back, and I get it. But it's just unfortunate for all of us. And but yeah, I what was going to be cool for me for season 4 was that we finally get to see. I don't know if you remember the last line of season 3, which was Grandma saying, "I'm finally going to tell you the truth about Monty Macabre." And so the secret of the town was that almost every single person in Monty Macabre was either a god or a demigod. All of them.
We did see what happened to Grandma Chata near the end of that episode, becoming a demigod and revealing her true form and all that. And Victor and Valentino getting water and fire powers in the episode before it.
Yeah. It's, they're all going to be, now that Tez is gone and the sleep spell is gone from the town, everyone is going to come into their godhood. And so there was so much that was left on the cutting room floor. We had the whole season 4, 5, and 6 and the spin-off, and where the boys were going to come into their godhood and become demigods and full-on half-human, half deities with water and lightning powers that kind of link up to create super powerful blasts against the new villain, Coyochauqui. We were going to have Huitzilopochtli, who's a dying god coming into human flesh. And so, there was just so much that I wanted to explore. But I actually did propose a graphic novel version. I went all out. I created the first few pages of it. I created the cover for it. I presented it to them, and they said no. I asked for a movie to kind of end it, like a 40-minute movie, just to kind of end the story, and they said no. And so it's just it was just something they just didn't have any room for. I mean, they didn't even have room for Batman, the Caped Crusader. They had to sell that off. So when you can't even do a Batman show, much less do my show.
Yeah, that actually pretty much answers our 6th question for you about what you would have done if the show didn't get canceled and you were allowed to do 4, 5, and 6 seasons and the spinoff, the Lonely Haunts Club. What was that show going to be about?
That show was going to be so sweet. It was just going to be about helping lonely, deceased people and having kind of a communal space for ghosts who are misunderstood, and they all live in this big house. A little bit kind of like Foster's, except a lot more macabre and a lot darker. A little bit like there's a bit of a Wednesday vibe in there. But it was just going to be kind of like a sweet little dead family show where Charlene and her friends just kind of explore haunted places and meet ghosts and become friends with them. Yeesh. And we actually created 2 animatics for that. They commissioned 2 animatics, and we created it. Some storyboard artists and some writers, and it went pretty far. It's just at the end they didn't have room for it. It wasn't aligning with their idea of what they wanted Cartoon Network to be.
Yeah, but we would have, if the show did get released, we would have definitely wanted to watch that.
Oh, that's really sweet of you. Thank you.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it would have been nice.
Yeah. Now, we do have 4 more questions left, but I figured that since we haven't seen him since 2022, we would ask your friend Victor to answer them for us.
Oh my gosh.
What? Say what?
Hey there, Victor! I was going to give you an introduction, but why not just go right into it?
Alright. This better be good.
This is pretty exciting. We actually have an actual Cartoon Network star sitting with us.
Oh
we did talk to your friend Clarence before, but this is pretty exciting.
Oh my gosh. So
yeah, I get.
Yeah, so we do have a few questions to ask you, Victor, and it's just that since things have gone a little bit down under for your show, how have you been, Valentino? How have you both been holding up?
Yeah, how have you been since the cancellation?
Oh, I've been awesome. I've been cool. I've been good. I've been doing cool stuff. Val's probably been doing dumb stuff. Like, he likes really stupid things, and he's probably bored, and no one wants to hang out with him. Everyone still wants to hang out with me.
I thought you and Valentino were starting to see eye to eye near the end of the show. Like, we've seen you and your brother, slowly starting to develop a sort of bond throughout the show's 3-season course.
Yeah. I don't like to admit it, but yeah, he's pretty cool, and I love him, but don't tell anyone I said that.
Yeah, we basically know that you and Valentino have your arguments throughout the series, but even dating back to the original pilot you did, when your voice sounded a lot different.
You're not allowed to die! Hey, boneheads! Put my brother down!
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, that was like a million years ago. I don't even remember.
Oh, good grief.
Oh my god.
But that also pretty much answers our question about how you guys get along off screen, like when you're not on the air, your show is not airing and they're playing stuff like Craig of the Creek or Teen Titans Go or Gumball.
Oh, I like Gumball. He's cool. Craig of the Creek, I think that's Val's friend. Like, they can be friends. I don't care about that guy. I love Gumball.
All right, then I guess you'd be pretty excited about the upcoming 7th season.
Oh, yeah. I'll be watching that. I'll be playing video games and watching that and watching cool stuff like anime and like zombies and blood. And he like watches like Mexican soap operas with grandma. I don't care about that stuff.
Okay, well, actually, we do have a little bit of a question about your past, because one of our favorite episodes from the first season was Escape from Bebe Bay. We did a whole episode review of it, and as you can see by Jared's shirt, we made a Baby Victor and Valentino shirt of you guys.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Oh, wow. That's super cool. Did you draw that?
I drew it. Jared and his friend Jerry printed it out.
It's actually...
Oh, wow.
A whole plastic container of artwork of you two as babies.
Look at how cool I look.
Oh, come on, the both of you are so adorable.
I mean, you could say that, but I'm not going to say that.
Yeah, just trying to keep your reputation afloat. But about this question, before you and Valentino spent the summer in Monte Macabre with your grandma Chata, what sort of adventures did you and Val go on when you were little kids or when you were babies? Well, before the events of Escape from Bebe Bay.
When we were babies, I don't really remember, but I remember I used to play a lot of video games, and then Val was into, like, reading and, like, dumb stuff like that and, like, doing homework. But I used to play a lot of video games like Castlevania and, like, cool stuff like that.
Whoa!
Wow.
So, video games even before you learn how to use the toilet? Like, before, like, you were in diapers?
I guess so. I'm not sure.
Anyway, before things...
I did both at the same time because I had a Game Boy.
Ooh.
Game Boy, that's a pretty fair point. But before things get too carried away, Victor, is there anything you want to say to all the fans who watch your show and every time a new episode aired on Cartoon Network back then?
I mean, I guess you can, like, tune in and see my old stuff. Go for it. But, like, I'm much cooler now and older now. I have a little bit of a mustache now. So it would be cool if I, like, get a new show at somewhere else. Maybe another season or something like that. But, yeah, go ahead and watch, like, my old stuff.
Okay.
Just watch the
wherever your show is still available, because it was being removed from digital platforms during the Warner Brothers animation purge.
Yeah.
But you can still, like, pirate the series and stuff.
Oh, yeah, pirate it. Pirate it, steal it, do what you gotta do. Do all that.
Well, Victor, thank you very much for joining us on our show. And you too, Diego. Thanks for the both of you guys to come in and, meet us.
Okay, bye.
It was my pleasure, guys. This was really fun.
Yeah, thanks.
So we hope you guys enjoyed this special interview, and be sure to check out all the Victor and Valentino videos we made, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos every week.
Yeah, subscribe or whatever. Every week.